worth it?
No.
No. Have you done any gaming? I've been in a couple of ranches where I couldn't even get close to that huge thing, let alone try and get it to do it. Anyway. So I like the metaphor of taming this wild, powerful beast that is the mind, because he can do amazing things with it. So, of course, we're going to have review, right? So, what do you remember about class 1? What's the meaning of the night? I'm trying to get you to internalize so you don't have to go looking for paper and so on. But at the end of the entire course, you can get a nice imprint that will stay with you for a long time, hence the repetition. Yeah? What do you... What's the...
Discipline?
Yeah, discipline, Buddhist discipline. Do you remember any other commentaries or any other characters that we're learning from?
The Daymaker?
Daymaker is a commentary, nice. Yeah.
On
Good. That's what we're going to do Tsongkhapa's commentary today.
What's the noun after?
Come on. Anything else? Let's see if we'll do a quick review. Okay. So the sources are the Vinaya Sutra, the Wado, which grabs the four main books on Vinaya. Master Dharmabhadra is the latest, is the one that explains Jason Kappa's commentary that explains the Vinaya. Right? So the essence here is, what is it that we're taming, right? And we're taming the mind as well as the physical senses, right? So stop getting the chocolate biscuit, yeah? Like stop the hand as well as the mind. Mm-hmm. So abandoning the 7 was the essence of it. Do you remember what the 7 were? This is important. Because we're talking about vows. Vinaya is vowed morality, right? So the discipline of recognizing, see if I can sum it up, the discipline of recognizing, after what we're up to, ACI 9, Asian Classic Institute Course 9, understanding that the world as you experience it is coming from your mind and the afflictions of your mind. That your entire experience of your particular world and the world we share comes from something to do with your mind, mostly your mind. And having the discipline to tame that mind, so with complete focus, the shamatha side practice, right? As the world is doing this to you, you know where it's really coming from, and you resist, for lack of a better word, the fakeness, the dreamlike, the illusion that causes us to continue doing the habits that creates that world in the first place. And when you look at Vinaya that way, then it's not like, okay, I'm making some stupid promises that seem like the Catholic monk that taught me, the one I talked about the other week. When you look at it that way, it's a problem. But when you have enough training and enough conviction to think through what we've learned so far, the idea of karma, dependent arising, wisdom, emptiness, the Dharmakara Sutra in them, right? The way that beings exist on the planet, etc. If you have enough information to grow a conviction that says to you, okay, this philosophy, this idea of Lord Buddha said, and by the way, it's not just him, right? The world as it is not, as I experience it, is not the way it is from its own side. There is something, mostly my mind, that is forcing me, despite myself, to see this experience the way I see it. But that's a lie. And I can tell because if I knew how to operate this world, then everything I tried would somehow have a good result. And because we're all trying to have really good things happen, but the shit still hits the fan. And we get disappointed. And then we act again to try and fix it. We're in these cycles. There's something else happening, and I can't see it. I'm blind to it. So some enlightened being said, Lord Buddha, on waking up, on Buddha, gave some instruction, but at the essence, he said, it's not the way you see it. If we had enough focus, if we had enough shamatha, if we had the capacity, hence the point of meditation, there's nothing else to meditate. Why meditate? It's boring. You know, like, it's not. But, no, but I know it's a good escape also from talking to people. You know, I use it for that. Sometimes I'm meditating. I don't want to, but it's not the point. The point is to dual your mind, to train your mind on focus and concentration. So, as life happens, you with enough training and logic can say, I know the causes of this thing and it's not what it seems. And with some conviction, which comes from practicing, it comes from testing and breaking these philosophies for you. I can't let you drink it. You know, I can't tell you the taste of water for me. So then, duwa, the practice of Vinaya, is really sharpening that tool. Sharpening the tool of, if I understand that the world comes from, then my mind is projecting a world the way I see it on this thing which is pregnant with opportunity, all the way from enlightenment to complete and utter destructive suffering. All the way. Beings can be terrible worms suffering shovels, fish being chopped up, children laughing in joy, Palestinians and Israelis bombing each other. Like you could, you know, and complete paradisical experiences of the ones we can see, and then logic is there's probably some more stuff over there and some more stuff down there. Where do they come from? Why did that person get that? Why did that person get that? Etc. So the study of Vinaya says, okay, so I've got enough information. Now I'm making myself some promise to tame my horse, tame my mind, so I can act in accord with that stuff that is really happening, and then see the results. Because I've been trying all these other methods to try and get results, and I'm fed up of them not working. So abandoning the seven, which is where I got to this in the first place, are what? What's it mean?
Body and speech.
Right, so there's the 10 non-virtues, right? The 10 top things out of the 84,000 mental afflictions, things that afflict our mind. The top 10 grouping of those 84,000 that the Buddha said, these are the big boulders in our path. If you can fix those, then the path should open up and you should be able to travel along this path a little faster. So, it's good to not do those 7 of the acts of body and speech, the physical acts, because that will give you some result. But it's better to do a promise not to do them, because if you've studied karma, you know that the attention around an intention gives you a faster result. If you give it a bigger scope to say for the sake of all living beings, then it's not a piece of little action that will give a piece of little result. It's a massive action that will give a massive result. And so on. So if you get the handle around the stuff we've studied already, then Vinaya begins to make sense in a way that it is the tools that you begin to whisper to your horse. Yeah? It is that. So abandoning the 7, we've got the 10 non-virtues. They are the first 7, the ones of body and speech. Right? No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, etc. etc. And then, do you remember this part? I wanted to talk a bit more about that and reiterate that and maybe have a little discussion around that in a sec. But do you remember this part? Why Tsongkhapa said that ethics is the root of the path, or the 3 baskets, or the 3 trainings, the training of wisdom, which is understanding, getting to a point where you can completely experience, immerse yourself in the reality of emptiness, seeing emptiness directly, the code that from which life arises, the complete, that pregnant thing I was talking about, the thing that makes everything possible, wisdom. Yeah, the only way you can see and have that purest of experiences is through shamatha, concentration, meditation, clear mind, focused mind. But the only way we can still those waters of the mind is through the practice of ethics, hence the night. Yeah, remember that? We're all on board. Am I preaching to the converted? Let's see what number 2 says. What did we do second class? Okay, here it is. We did the whole Vinaya Sutra, the whole Do. And this is a summary of what I covered on that second class. Remember there were the preliminary overviews that talked about the Buddhist life, why Vinaya is the highest teaching. The Buddha said if someone's teaching Vinaya, then I'm there because the essence of enlightenment is there. And then the explanation of the 2 root texts in the 4 explanatory sutras. Do you remember why we talked about the Buddhist life and enlightened activity? Do you remember that? No? Because that's coming in everywhere that Vinaya is taught, they start off with the sequence of the Buddhist life.
Well, I don't know if this is the answer exactly to that, but because this is considered like the most important part of
That's it. A good answer, but it's not the answer.
It's also showing us that we all have potential to reach enlightenment, to see the story of.
Great, that's nice, but that's also not what I taught in some part. No, but that's a great answer because that's true. I mean, it gives you that essence of, you know, if a being fed up or shocked enough about the reality of life can do these steps and wake up, then so can I. Yeah? But no, what I was getting to is because, remember the 2 realities, the 2 truths? Relative and ultimate. Yeah, remember the 3 levels of reality, which are
Hidden.
great,
Very,
very hidden and obvious reality, right? So, Nungyo, Kokyo, and Shinto Kokyo in Tibet, great. So that we relate, see, we are used to relating to each other, right? Until we go to Nepal and we can't speak the language. And then all of a sudden we're relying on all these other ways that humans do to relate to each other. And then we have another mode of relating with animals. But we get stuck in these modes and we forget that there are obvious realities that we can all see. Colors and shapes, we can say most humans can relate to specific colors and shapes and name them by the same name or point them to the same thing. And we're in agreement, conventional reality, that's our reality. As a group, and then you can subgroup and subgroup and subgroup. We can agree on colors and shapes and Nungyo, obvious reality. And our senses connect to those things, and on connecting, we have a certain obvious reality experience. You know, like, what is this? Answer? Right. I bet you it's not a phone, right? Because if you were to go only by your Nungyo, by your obvious reality, it's actually not even a rectangle for you. Because from the angle you're standing, it's that way for him. For her, it's a rectangle. For me, it's white, not black. Right? If we go purely by what our senses are capturing in the world, we're forever adding stuff through habit, which is right, it's correct for our groupie, yeah? But no way can I give this to that horse and make it ring anyone. And that seems so obvious, but there's stuff in that. If we can crack that, if we can crack how we project a whole bigger reality around what's really there, because all you can really see is half a shape. You created the other half, you created the other. But you're right. But it is there, but that's not what you're experiencing. What you're experiencing is so much less than what you've created. You didn't even create it by choice. You did it through habituation. And animals do it, and humans do it, and we all do it. And that's Nungyo. That's accepted reality. We can debate now whether it's a square or if it's black or it's a shade of brown. You know, we can have language to discuss that. Then you have hidden reality, which we use some kind of instinctive logic to uncover the hidden, yeah, i.e. the second half of the phone, the button. We all know it's there, but it's not there to your senses, yeah. But I can tell you, I see in my mind the full phone even I'm not looking at it, you know, and the sensation of touching it. I think I've got the top half of the phone in my hand, as well as the bottom part of my phone. The reality is, if I allow the focus of my mind to pay attention to the sensation in my hand, I only have 2 fingers with some pressure, a thumb with some pressure. I don't have a phone in my hand. Does that make sense, or am I getting too esoteric? That's hidden reality, yeah? Slightly hidden. Because we're making very quick and correct for our grouping assumptions. That's how we function. That's how we become the dominant species, you know? We predict what this is, and we're mostly right. And therefore, we can take over the planet. Yeah? We can kill targets. That's really what we're highly evolved. The human race is highly evolved at doing that trick. Getting that mostly right. Yeah? That habitual pattern recognition that tells us what lies beyond what's truly coming in. Because what's truly coming in is pressure for 2 fingers and a thumb for me. Yeah? A little bit on the bottom pinky. But I think I've conceptualized a complete iPhone. I have a sensation that I'm holding a complete iPhone. I'm not even touching this part up here. But I think I have it. You see, and when you analyze it slowly like that, if you have the discipline to do it in meditation, for example, you see the trick that your mind is doing. And if it's doing it to this, it's doing it to that. Because that's moving. And so now I've got a whole bunch of stuff about that I call a person, and that person of a specific type. And it gives me all these feelings. And, you know, it's too fast for me to catch it as it's happening. But in meditation, if you've got the practice, you can catch it. So the point of talking about the Buddha's life at the beginning is to say, we can agree on Nungir. We can agree on Kokir, hidden reality, mostly. Yeah? Then you have some mini debates about people that are colorblind, and people that are, you know, like blah blah. But mostly in our groupings, we can agree. But then there's Shinto Kokir, very hidden reality, that even in our space is so far out there to consider that we need to rely on a specialist, someone that has been to that planet, someone that has been to that journey, someone that has had that experience. And fortunately or unfortunately, we have to trust their word, like we would a doctor who knew about cancer, and I don't know about cancer. All I know is my gut hurts, you know. And then I've got to go, well, you've seen 1,000 people with gut hurts. You've done all this pushing and testings in the Nungir. You can see it in the Kokir, in the hidden reality through X-rays and tests and all this. You can make assumptions that are mostly correct. But then I have a leap of faith to go, well, I have that thing that he calls that, or she calls that. I have no choice but to trust them. So the point of talking about the Buddha at the beginning of all Vinaya is to say, the world is coming at you so fast that if I tell you to do all these things and you just do them because, that's going to have some result, because you're refraining from hurting life, for example. And you're protecting life, hopefully. And you're refraining from taking what's not given, and removing stuff from people. And stopping those things will cause a certain result. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that only the Buddha, only an enlightened mind, not this Buddha, a Buddha, any Buddha, can tell you the precise correlations between if you do these things, enlightenment will result. Does that make sense? So hence that. And then the condensed version of the Duwado then talks about the explanation of the root text, the meaning of the name, which we've already talked about. You said it was Buddhist disciplines like taming a horse. The explanation of the translators bow to the Buddha, saying, you know, this represents the teaching of the Buddha, etc. Commentary upon the root text talks about the 4 essential points of a Tibetan, of of a holy book worth studying. Do you remember what those were? I think I've taught them a couple of times. It mainly says, out of all the stuff you could read or put your mind on, if it's getting you out of suffering, it's worth studying. And if it shows you the steps to get there, it's worth studying. And if there's a link between them, it'll get you to nirvana. Then it's a book worth studying. Then what we're covering today is the actual commentary. And then do you remember the auxiliary points? What was taught there? There's all this other stuff thrown into the Vinaya. After you have a group of monks and nuns together, when you're building a temple, make sure you put the wheel of life at the front. Do you remember that? And so there's a clear description on how to draw pictorially the steps to enlightenment at the front of every monastery, and I showed you a bunch of pictures. I think that's all I've got to cover for the review. We did good. Any questions? No? Are you all sleepy? Are you all excited to really listen to Vinaya?
Yay!
How exciting! Are you thinking of your motivation for figuring out if these truly are steps to enlightenment? If you can really rely on a teacher like the Buddha to say, do these things, and within a certain amount of time you should have sufficient result. Are you jaded enough to want to figure it out for yourself? I don't know how to phrase that question.
Yes.
You know, I mix the words. You know, we get jaded, right? We get like, I've tried doing nice things and I've failed. If I try again, I'm going to fail. You know, for me, I encounter that battle in Buddhist practice all the time. Yeah, my normal mind saying, but you failed, you were such a shitty meditator at the beginning. You know, what's to say that you're going to get any better? So why meditate at all? But what if there was? What if if you've had an experience of bliss, if you've had an experience of complete freedom from suffering, even for a millisecond, you're sitting there and you're in love with your world. Nothing can trouble you at that moment. If it happened once as a millisecond, then it's doable. You just got to find the courses to make it stay. To be outside the wheel. So it's available, it's there. And that keeps my hopes up. It keeps me excited to practice. Without that motivation, without that genuine self-pushing awareness, Tsongkhapa says doing Vinaya for the sake of what other people say, or you're going to be a good Buddhist, or you better do this the right thing, or whatever, it's just going to be trouble for you. It's just going to feel like a negative restraint. And I know about that. Okay, I'm more than happy to share and tell you how many wasted years of thinking of vows in a particular way. And I can also tell you when that broke for me. And the goodness of it. The bottom line is we're doing this, the essence of the Ocean of Vinaya, by Tsongkhapa tonight. And what the summary is if you know how to get the vows, that was in one of the preliminary, in the commentary part, if you know how to get the vows, and there's a whole discussion about that today, and how to keep them properly. Yeah, so if you know how to get the seeds, and how to keep them in the ground properly, yeah, and let them grow, and how to fix them when the branches fall off, and so on, then you know Vinaya, you know the essence of all these amazing scriptural sources that came from the Buddha's time. So that's the bottom line. I wanted to share with you the opening words of Tsongkhapa's Ocean of Vinaya, the essence of Ocean of Vinaya. In the opening lines, and it's good karma if you repeat it, because there's an imprint of the sound. So just see if you can say after me, Om, Delek, Sugyurchi. So that's the opening lines that Tsongkhapa uses to start talking about Vinaya. And Om It's amazing that he starts with that because he's basically saying Om is right? Body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. So he's basically saying, invoking all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. He's saying in that one syllable, it's coded with the result of Vinaya, and he's calling upon that essence to be present as he starts reading this book. He's writing this book. Yeah? It says Om. Delek is happiness. Gur is goodness. And Chik is may there be. So may there be happiness and goodness. Om. Yeah? And he's saying, may living beings achieve a temporary happiness, meaning not be in the lower realms, and goodness, nirvana, and achieve nirvana or Buddhahood, yeah, permanent Buddhahood. So that's how he starts the line. He says, hey, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, help me out here. May all these beings not be trapped in the lower cycles of existence that we discussed in the wheel of life. May they have that happiness of not being stuck down there. But may they also achieve nirvana, which is a permanent cessation of anything afflicting your mind, and Buddhahood.
When you said body, speech, mind, does certain sounds or one of those bodily speech and mind?
Yeah.
Which one is?
Om, body, speech, mind. In that order. So I wanted to share that it also might be in your homework, if you're doing the homework. And then in the opening verse, he confirms that we're going to talk about Vinaya. He says Sotar, which is short for Sotarpa, Gidompa, which is individual freedom vows, is what we're talking about. Prati moksha means individual freedom. And you should probably know that. Why individual freedom? So Master Dharmabhadra, which is the latest commentary we study that explains all the other things, will tell us in a second. But why do you think Pratimoksha or vowed morality should be called individual freedom vows? What do you think? What comes to mind? Why would they use the words individual freedom?
Is it maybe because it leads you to nirvana and not enlightenment?
Great, so freedom is code for nirvana, right? And because we're studying Vinaya, which is a Hinayana system, if you want to call it that way, we have to talk about nirvana, right? Okay. And just to jump ahead, all the vows that the monks take are Hinayana vows in the Mahayana Tibetan tradition. Because that's what the Buddha taught. But why individual freedom? Why individual nirvanas?
Because it gets you out.
It gets you out, yeah. So
It can only get you out.
right, so Master Dharmabhadra says because those that keep them, the individual, can achieve, if you keep these vows, you can achieve nirvana, you can achieve freedom.
That's how you can achieve nirvana.
Right. But if you don't keep them, you can't achieve it, Master Dharmabhadra says. And so it's an individual matter, which should pose all these questions in your mind if you're living conventional life, and I am. Like, does that mean that she can be in nirvana right now because she's done these pratimokshas and I can't, and we're sitting in the same room because it's an individual matter? It should pose this question in your mind. How can I tell whether or not that person is enlightened or in nirvana or not? Because it's an individual matter now. Damn it. So what? We can't. If I do all these things, will everybody, and I achieve a state of nirvana, will everybody experience me like I experience me? And just to do a really terrible connection, like, because it's so base and so when you've worked your ass off at whatever skill you've got at your job and whatever, and then you go to some other employer or some other job and they don't know what you know, right? And then they treat you like you don't know. It's nothing to do with what your knowledge is and nothing to do with what your skill is. And at some point you can't convince them of your internal world. And that's in the conventional level, you know? So this actually makes it easier and it makes it harder. So are you serious? You know, like, I have to ask myself, are you serious about this idea of enlightenment, Hector? Because if you are, you're going to have to maneuver through that little complication. And then if you add the understanding that comes from the Tibetan system, the Mahayana system, then you sort of understand why they would be talking about Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in paradisical realms experiencing each other and nobody can see them. Because you'd have to have the karma, you'd have to have the virtue manifesting to a result of your discipline to be able to experience another person as pure. Because it doesn't come from them, if you understand emptiness and karma. So it's actually a beautiful affirmation of the Mahayana view of empty, or the Prasangika view, middle way view of emptiness and karma, for those of you who have been studying. So that's why Master Dharmabhadra says that, but Jason Kappa gives a sort of definition. I've summarized it, bastardized it to try and get it on and not give you too much text. But he says, vows of individual freedom, pratimokshas, are basically refraining from hurting others along with its basis out of a motivation of renunciation. So he says, you know, you can group all of Vinaya, all of these vows, all of these promises that you are making internally to yourself to say, okay, it's basically saying, because I'm fed up with samsara, because I'm fed up with trying the same old things that I have tried all my life, and then if I look up just a millisecond and I'll see people with 5 years more experience than me, 10 years more experience than me, if I see even the older people, the ones 20 years and 30 years, if I look at history, have we not tried it all to get happy? And are we still not bombing each other in Israel? And are we still not hurting each other in relationships with families? And have I not eaten enough cake to think that cake's not going to do it? It comes close. But then you got the problem of the gym. So the motivation here, he's adding the motivation. So Jason Kappa is saying, it's refraining from doing all these deeds that the Buddha said if you stop doing them you'll achieve nirvana, because you're fed up for yourself. Yeah? You recognize that hurting others is the cause of your suffering. So it's completely Mahayana. It's magnificent. And then Master Dharmabhadra says that Jason Kappa added, or was trying to figure out, what does along with its basis mean? Because it's in the definition, right? So individual freedom vows, pratimoksha, is refraining from hurting others. Yeah, because it deals with body and speech, right? So I can't say things that I know will hurt you, and I can't punch you, and I can't cut you, and I can't do things that I think will hurt you. That's what this is saying. But you can't just do that because. He's saying do it because you're sick and fed up of things not working the way they do. The only way out is to stop hurting people. You are a people too. Yeah? So you're one of them. But then he says, along with its basis, stop hurting people, stop the 7, yeah? Along with its basis. What's the basis of the 7?
The 3 of mind.
The 3 of mind. So some couples like, we've got the 10 on virtues, we're in. That's what Master Dharmabhadra is saying. And it makes sense because even if you look at the Abhidharma school, it's the motivating karma The mind is the thing that moves the body and the speech. So you want to get the basis. Before I punch you, I had to think, I don't like you. You know? So it's taming that. Yes, stop punching, but work on the thinking why I should punch him. Because then if I get that, that stops. Right? So it's a beautiful definition. So we're talking Vinaya. I know we're going definitions and very Tibetan, but you need to have the space. If you're going to have an imprint in your mind that could impact the trajectory of your existence on the planet, it's worth spending time thinking about these, and the Tibetans are so good at this, these fine details. What is it that we're studying? You know, oh, I've come to a Buddhist class, thank you, goodbye. It's not, you know, it's like, what if this serves you? What if this is medicine, really? For every affliction that you've had, if you're fed up, if your motivation is, I want out of this state of being, not kill yourself, or it's not out like that, it's fed up with not being able to make it work, not being able to make the system work, the machine work, the machine being you in this world. There is a different button you can push, and this is called Vinaya. And then all this computation start happening, and it will result in a thing according to the Buddha. So that's the motivation. Stop hurting others along with this basis. So you've got to really tame both the senses and the mind. Yeah? I think that's it. Good. Questions on that? No? So we're doing Tibetan, which means now we're going on to Tsongkhapa's. Before he starts his stage, he goes, I'm going to do the Vinaya in 6 parts. So here are the 6 parts that we'll cover. We'll cover the first 2.5 today. And this is, you know, I said let's spend some time thinking about these ideas. The promise from Lord Buddha is, if you do these things, you get to nirvana. And nirvana means no more negative anything. Not a single negative movement of your mind. Peace. Freedom. All those words that we set up in the United States.
Last time you said, or maybe you might have been from reading, I can't remember, that you can be nirvana but also experience pain.
But not as suffering. Yeah, we talked about it in, it was in one of Buddha's previous lives. We did it in the Diamond Cutter Sutra, where he was being chopped up by a king who saw him talking to his good lady wife, remember that? Yeah? And he was a bodhisattva, he wasn't quite in nirvana. Yeah? You can't experience pain in nirvana. You can still have your finger chopped off, but you wouldn't see that as suffering.
Okay.
Because you still got this stuff. I mean, remember this nirvana with time remaining, whatever. You can be in a state of mind where you experience what other people might call suffering, but for you it might be, oh, I didn't need that.
Thank you for talking it out.
Yeah, thank you very much.
But you would still experience pain, you just want to experience suffering.
You would have an experience. You couldn't call it pain because we call pain suffering, right? So that's why I'm dancing with the word.
But you couldn't experience sadness?
If you're in nirvana, definition being permanent cessation of all mental afflictions, there shouldn't be one that has a negative, that afflicts your mind, that gives
But that's
us.
different. I'm saying that you can experience sadness but not be afflicted about it.
You could have an experience of what we call sadness, but your experience of it would be a different thing. And in fact, it's one of the big debates. Forget nirvana, go to Buddhahood, right?
Yeah.
Which is complete enlightenment. This is a huge debate. The Buddha is perceiving everything, right? I'm part of everything. I'm not in nirvana and I'm not in Buddhahood. I've got a pretty suffering internal existence like most of us do. If he's experiencing or she's experiencing my mind, are they not experiencing suffering? You know? So that's a big debate and a good thing to meditate on if you want to meditate for the rest of your life. But this is good to see. The point is not to get an answer, although you will come to an answer. The point is to look for the answer. because you will come to an answer. And then it's your answer. And if you're well trained and if you've studied, that's the next step. You move through the path. Yeah. But we digress. The 6 areas that Tsongkhapa says he's going to cover in this text about the 9. The promise is you do these things called the 9, the vows, and you do them properly and you'll be free from suffering. Yeah? Out of samsara. It's the moon in the wheel of life. Yeah? And so Jason Kappa says the first thing I want to cover is what's the basic nature of a vow? What the hell is it? You think you asked that question the first or second day. He's going to talk about it today, right? What is it? What's it made of? What stuff is it? How does it turn on, etc. Then the next thing he's going to talk about is some groupings of vows. There are vows, they turn on nirvana. Let's talk about some groupings. Then we talk about inside each grouping, here are the actual vows. Yeah? So we'll get to the vows here. And then next couple of classes we'll cover where do they grow? What ground will these grow in? What kind of person can actually take a vow? And why will it turn on in that one and not in that one? An example of this is, you can't take monk's vows until a certain age because you don't have conceptualization of what some of those things mean yet. So you have to be of a certain age, for example, before a certain vow can take root. How they can be lost, and if you keep them, how awesome they are. So we'll cover, out of these 6, which might be in your homework, the first 3 if we've got time today. Yeah? And I think we'll have time. Let's have a look. Have I gotten anything else? The essence. Okay, cool. So basic nature. What do you think they're made of? So I say vow, you have some idea, right? And don't give me, if you've studied before, don't do it. No. What do you think is a vow?
Intention.
It's intention. What stuff is intention made out of?
Energy.
Energy. So it's a kind of energy.
It's protection
It's protection.
against doing bad deeds.
Protection. But where is it? Like what's its substance? What's its
A commitment.
So in Buddhism you've got basically these 4 choices. Can you see them? Remember we did this? It's either changing or unchanging, right? So it's either an unchanging thing, or if it's a changing thing, it's either physical or mental, or neither physical nor mental. Right? And basically that's the big 4 choices in Buddhist philosophy. There's nothing outside those. Mm-hmm.
Was this the question from the reading of like the physical, the 2 different schools and their
Great.
view of it?
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember the
I don't
answer?
remember what school it's which, but the one says that it's a physical thing because it's based on the actions that we do, but in school it's mental because it's the intention which is finding the seeds for the result.
Okay. So I think Michelle said mental, right? So you're settling on it's either mental or physical.
I said intention.
You said intention. What's
energy.
it? What's this energy?
What's the energy?
Yeah. Where is it? Where is it reside? Like where?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. So my vows. If I take a vow that will an individual freedom vow,
Okay.
how do I grow that? Remember, so the essence is you're able to you had them. You didn't have them before. Then you had them.
Yeah.
Then you grow them. You try and stop them from breaking, and then they give you a result. Yeah.
Yes.
So if it's an energy, because I mean these words are describing something for you, right?
Yes.
So if it's an energy, how is it that I, by making a promise, grow that energy? Where?
Where in your
Yeah, and I'm giving you
yeah.
prompts without trying to do it. Sorry,
Right.
I just saw it.
Your
Yeah.
heart. Right. In your like your center.
Okay.
Right.
Who said intention?
I said
Who said intention?
In your
So if I'm not intending, so let's say I'm sleeping, and I'm not intending to not punch you in the face. Yeah, so let's say that's one of my vows. Don't punch him in the face.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, and if it's an energy that grows with my intention, yeah. And I have either a very distracted moment where I'm swerving against the bus, and so my intention not to punch him in the face has left me a little bit. Does that mean I don't have the vow at that point? Does that mean it's not part of me at that point?
No,
Where is it? Where did it go?
it's resting in your.
Right.
Right there, though.
It's stored.
Where? Because if it's resting somewhere, then you're gonna find a place for it.
I don't know the name for it.
And then is it physical? That's it's a good question. You see, because if we're going to grow some vows, we better know where they sit. You know, like, or we should wreck our brains to say, well, if vows. Here's another way of looking at it. If vows produce your reality, if your intention, this energy, whatever you're calling it, create our reality, and we are now stuck with this reality because of some intention and some energy or some karmas that we did in the past, right? That's the theory. We're stuck with this because we've had something and this is the result of that. Vows are saying exactly the same thing but intensified and towards virtue. So if you do certain things, you're going to get an awesome result, right? So where did we keep all these that cause this life? You know?
In the mind.
In our mind.
Like our-
Would it be the same place? What's the name for it? Where all of our karma stories?
Yeah.
That little like,
The-
that little
Right?
The
right place.
Kunchi thing,
That's the mind-only school, the Kunchi.
was that the cloak
Right,
thing?
in the description of ourselves, our own
Would that
concept
kind
of
of be where our
ourselves.
vows are? If it's
That's nice, the indestructible crop, you're saying.
in the
Yeah.
indestructible drop?
Yeah, interesting. It's worth thinking about. I'm not going to give you the answer. I will. Okay, so only because it's a little difficult. You know, we're talking about, for those of you who have done some study, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, there are 4 ancient schools of India, and they have different views about what emptiness means, what no self means, what dependent origination means, how karma stays in your mind means, or how karma grows means. And definitely they have different views about where and how vows grow. It's good to have all these in your mind, in your awareness, so you can see what school you belong to. And then we can all go to Harry Potter, Hogwarts. Then you can belong to one of the schools there. One of the because you by default you will land on a certain position like you did. You called it energy, intention. Yeah, you said mind. I was surprised when I learned this for the first time, and it wasn't the school I landed. I wanted to go to, I don't know the Hogwarts schools. You know what? I wanted to go to Dumbledore or whatever it's called. That one. And I didn't get that. Didn't get in there. So a group says it's mental. It's just mental. It's the intention. So the Sautantrika school, which is the second of the 4 schools, says it's the continued intention, meaning I shouldn't punch him in the face. I won't punch him in the face. I'll try not to punch him. And that, through that awareness, having that continue is my vow. Is actually my vow. Yeah? And then the mind-only school, where the Kunchi and all that stories, because they say it's all mind, they're saying that's okay, but then they argued, like I argued with her, what happens when I'm asleep? You know, where's my intention sitting on the pillow next to me and it's having a life of its own? You can't say it's just your intention, because you need to have intention. You have to have awareness around the intention. So maybe it's...
I don't think that you have to have awareness around intention.
It just grows, right? So they call
Once
this...
you said it
Once you said it, it grows of its own accord. And so the mind-only school say,
with
let's
discipline.
call that the mental seed. So then they call that thing that continues when you haven't got awareness on it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, so they've gone, so they also think it's mental. They're saying, it is that, but it's also when you're not got the intention fully developed, then it's the it's the seed, the pattern, the propensity that continues on. So the ball rolling, the rolling stone, and so on. Yeah? So they're saying that those two schools 2 and 3, say that. And then the Madhyamika Svatantrika, which is the first part of the 4th school, say it's something that you can see in your mind. It's your attention to it. Yeah, it's the way that your mind remembers it. It's a mental thing. Yeah. And then the detailers, which Geshe Michael calls us Abhidharmas, because that's what they teach. They say it's an invisible cloak. It's physical. It's not mental. It's physical. It's like
An aura.
like an aura or something like that. And then
Cool.
they come to some trouble with that because they have the whole debate about, well, here I am taking my vow not to punch him in the face, okay? So I'm kneeling on my knee and I've got my hands over here, and the monk, the holy monk, is giving me my vow, do not punch him in the face. And I go, okay, do not punch him in the face. And that's all called, it's a physical communicating karma that you can all see. I'm on my knee, my hands are folded. You understand that means I'm not going to punch him in the face, right? But 3 minutes later, when I get up and I walk outside in the middle of Manhattan and nobody sees me in that position in this room, do I have the vow or not have the vow? If it's physical, and if it's that physical part, then that physical part stopped. So then the argument is, the Abhidharmas, the detail school, had to come up with a more ingenious way of saying that. Say, well, there's the stuff you can't see, that it's a physical form, that it's like a cloak, that you can't see it, but it's still physical because it still continues with me when I'm down the street. It's their answer for that intention. And surprisingly, the second part of the 4th school, for those of you who care about the positions that people take on these important topics, because it serves you in meditation. The school that His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Geshe Michael, Ken Rinpoche, Nagarjuna belong to, they say it's physical too. It's form. And it blew my mind. I'm like, what, that is stupid? That was really my first. It's obviously your mind. Like in my heart, you know, like, and it was shocking for me to hear that in my mind when I first heard it, and it took some convincing. And what they're talking about here is mental formations. It's the form, it's an aspect of your mind, but it's a form that the mind engages with. So when you imagine, let's say,
Like
the
it's
color.
an energy that continues to exist.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, right.
Nice.
I just got excited.
So when you're imagining your frigid home, you have a mental formation of that frigid home, and it's that kind. Yeah. So as if I'm looking at you and I have the impulse, I shouldn't punch him. I have some kind of conceptualization of what that means for who I am and who he is, and that whole formation in my mind is physical in nature insofar as that the mind sees it as a physical form, mental formation. And when you hear the Heart Sutra, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no forms or sounds or smells or touches or darkness at all, they're talking about form and then physical form, mental form as well. So it's that type. It's going to take some thinking through, but you've got to know that there's two positions. It's either a mental thing or a physical thing, a formation, but it's not matter, you see? Both of them landed on, it's not matter as in what we say is physical.
But if it's just physical, then the intention pieces are missing.
That's why it's a mental formation. It's part of your consciousness, not matter. It's not physical that we think of as physical, which is a trap for us. Yeah? So you're safe to say it's an object of the mind that is form. It's form. It's not,
Intention.
see, it's before the intention. It's after the intention. The growing of the vowels is not the intention. It's the formation that comes after the intention has come, not
So
to
the
punch him in the
intention
face.
is the wisdom aspect.
Nice, yeah. But you can see how all of these positions add to whatever it is you're going to experience your vowels growing. Because sometimes I sit and I go, it's actually the mental seed, the continuum that I planted through habituation, that all of a sudden I look at him and I want to hug him, I don't want to punch him, and then I know, I'm affirmed, I have a mental picture that vowel is growing on of its own accord, that the intention has now an impulse of its own accord. Yeah? It's important to know because as we get to the specific parts of the vowels, you want to know how to fertilize them. And if you're fertilizing the wrong ground, you're not going to grow your vowel. Yeah, with that, let's take a quick break. This was the hardest thing, and Master Dharmabhadra says in his commentary in several times, he goes, they say this, they say that, it's actually really difficult, maybe somebody in the future can figure it out. This is Master Dharmabhadra, you know, who the hell am I? If we can come back in 7 minutes, I'll cover some vowels, we'll talk about some vowels. Okay. Gee, how are you?